just want to draw your attention to a few announcements that are located in your pew, and I'm sorry, located in your bulletin room. I'll share with you a few things. Next Sunday, June 1st, big Sunday for us for a number of reasons. We're honoring our graduates. We actually have 7 graduates. Can you believe that? 7 graduates, and so we're going to recognize them, pray for them. We're going to give them a little gift. And one of those gifts is just some words of just wisdom or prayers from you. And so in the back, on the table back there are journals, okay? We're just asking for you to consider writing just maybe it's a verse that's meant a lot to you, maybe it's just a prayer for them, just some words of wisdom and encouragement for them in their next chapter. And then they're going to take that with them. And so we ask that you not take those books, okay? Leave those here, please. But if you don't have time today, you're welcome to come in throughout the week and write in notes as well. Just let us know we'll make a way opportunity for you. We're going to give those to those graduates next Sunday, June 1st, okay? And so next Sunday is also when our deacon ballots are due. So if you're a member here, you should receive one of those. And so those are due next Sunday, as well as just a friendly reminder on that. This summer, New York City missions trip. Wow, what an incredible opportunity we have to be able to reach the nation. So many people groups come to New York City and live in New York City. Just think about that for a second. And so what a way to reach the nation is just a few hours away from us. And so if you're interested, you feel like God's leading you to go on that trip this summer, talk to Michelle. She'll be happy to answer any kind of questions you have regarding that trip. But it's going to be a great trip as well. And then the last thing I'll share with you is that we're taking a special collection for Talbot Interfaith Shelter. There's a box in the back. There's more details on those things that we're collecting, but we'd love for you to be a part of that. And so you can drop those off in the box in the foyer, and we'll be collecting those for the next little while. So that's all I have in terms of announcements. I'm going to ask Richard Shaw. Richard's going to be sharing God's word with us today, and so we're excited and looking forward to that. So thank you, Richard.
You know, getting old is not fun. I look out this morning and I'm seeing a number of young people that I don't remember seeing before. I take it away that you've been away at colleges and universities, and it is so good to see you here this morning. And I compliment you for being here. Yes, I decided to grow a little bit of beard because I got a little bit jealous of Wade, and actually I'm competing with him. So, you know, if you'll let him know this morning how much better mine looks. In the fall of 1862, the United States, before I get in trouble, in the fall of, hold on, turn me down. In the fall of 1862, the United States was reeling from one defeat after another at the hands of the Confederate Army. Confederate Army, of course, was under the leadership of General Robert E. Lee. European powers like England and France were anxious to recognize the Confederacy in part to discomfit the upstart United States, but partly to be able to traffic in the coveted cotton needed for their textile mills. General George McClellan, leader of the Union Army, having amassed an enormous army, convinced himself over and over and over again that Lee's forces were greater than his own. As President Lincoln fumed, Railroad refused to attack. Meanwhile, Lincoln struggled over when to release his Emancipation Proclamation. European powers wanted to recognize the rebellion, but if he could declare slaves in the rebellious states free, then he would be able to reframe the war, as it were, as a crusade against slavery. For that, he needed a victory. He needed political cover. He needed a victory with such a general that certainly was not forthcoming under its current leadership. In the fall of 1862, General Lee began a campaign through our state of Maryland. He was hoping to destabilize a southern state that had remained with the Union, had been forced to remain with the Union. He established martial law. He suspended habeas corpus. And the leaders of the state of Maryland were moved down to Point Lookout, down in southern St. Mary's County, and in prison. In the fall of 1862, General Lee began that campaign, and then on September 10th, Lee's plans fell into the lap of General McClellan. A soldier found 3 cigars, which were written Lee's orders. And McClellan crowed that with these in his hand, he could defeat Bobby Lee. Forces met near Sharpsburg, Maryland. What followed was the Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest single day in American history. Over 23,000 people died on that day. Photographs by James Gardner of dead bodies in the bloody lane or in front of Dunker Church suddenly made the war real for people. It was a victory, barely, but it was enough that Lincoln had the political cover that he needed to release the Emancipation Proclamation, and England and France were unable to recognize the Confederacy. And yet, McClellan, still believing in the numerical superiority of the force he had just defeated. The Confederates were always outnumbered, had always been. And yet, McClellan refused to pursue that defeated army of Northern Virginia. Many experts think that he could have ended the war by simply following Lee and taking up his advantage. The Confederates were able to limp across the Potomac River to safety, infuriating the president and leading eventually to McClellan's house. McClellan had the plan. He knew what forces Lee had, and he knew where it was heading. And yet he could not follow a simple plan that would have ended the war, which then dragged on for 3 more bloody years. You know, it's easy to look back at history and see what people ought to have done. We can replay key events and point out how extremely simple the solution was. We can criticize those on the ground with the benefit of hindsight. Let me ask you this morning. is not humanity to one way of thinking in open rebellion against the kingdom of heaven. How many churches today, even as we profess that Jesus is Lord, put themselves first, engaging in fighting and backstabbing and plotting? More important, we are in possession of all the information that we need to win. We know what it takes to win a great victory over the world. Here's the question. Will we follow through with the battle plan, or will fatigue or cowardice or exhaustion prevent us from achieving this great thing that we need to achieve? Today's scripture passage is short, but there's so much there. It's simple. John the Evangelist knew that he had an important message, and he chose to write it in the world language of his day, Koine Greek. I took it in college. It probably was a mistake, but I did manage to get through it. Koine Greek is not fancy Greek. It isn't literary Greek. It's letter writing Greek. It's receipt writing Greek. It's business Greek. Greek was everybody's second language in the first Christian century. John's Greek is very simple. His vocabulary is limited. It seems likely that Greek was his second language. The result is that he tells the story very clearly so that even folks like me, who need to have very simple instructions in order to operate a television with a VCR and a satellite, can follow along. The passage is an integral part of John's account of the Last Supper. And we find it in the 13th chapter of the Gospel of John. And beginning with the first verse, the chapter begins, "Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end." Love is central to the verse. Hey, you say, "Now, Pastor, every time you've preached here, you've talked extensively about love." Yes, I have. Because love is central to the Bible. Jesus is about to demonstrate what love truly means. First in the upper room, and then ultimately on the cross. This love is going to be demonstrated in the face of and despite an agonizing betrayal. Judas is mentioned in the second verse. And again, in today's passage, when John states, when he had gone out, the he in question is Judas. Judas has left the building. Jesus knows that evil is soon going to have its way. One he has trusted has sat out on a terrible task, and everything is about to fall apart. And yet, Jesus says, beginning with the 31st verse. Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself and will glorify him at once. You know, glorify is wonderful. But the glory will come in being raised up for all to see on that terrible cross. Surely, the disciples had looked toward a worldly definition of glory. They thought that God's entrance into history would mean driving the Romans into the sea, freeing their land of temporal enemies, and establishing the political reign of God's anointed one. But you know, Jesus had demonstrated in his Last Supper that love means the foot washing. It was customary to bathe before arriving in dinner. But people walked barefoot or with sandals, so they would arrive at the home of their host with dirty feet. Generally, there were basins near the door for people to wash their feet when they came in. A slave could be forced to do this menial task, of course, and it was considered very demeaning to do this. But according to biblical scholar John Christopher Thomas, there is no record anywhere in the ancient world of a superior washing the feet of an inferior. Nowhere. When Jesus girded himself with a towel and washed the feet of his disciples before that love feast, they were shocked. They were scandalized. Most of them sat silent, not sure what to say. They couldn't believe what was going on. But Peter could bring himself to protest. Big mouth Peter, always. Jesus made it clear, if anyone wanted to be a disciple, they needed to be ready to do the same thing. You know, this scene shows us that there's nothing love will not do for the beloved. Caregivers understand this. They share times of service and ministry in the most gut-wrenching circumstances. Love is not just the subject of Valentine and little pink cherubic angels with stubby wings. Love is for the tough times. Love is for the real times. Having shown them what love means, Jesus wanted to say something about it as well. And after addressing his closest friend as little children, here it's worth noting that maybe we all feel insulted to be identified as little children. Were it not for the fact that it is as children we are able to accept the gospel. Jesus proceeded to explain in very simple language that he was going away. I'm with you only a little longer. You will look for me, as I said to the Jews. So now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot If these words puzzled them, they didn't say. But then Jesus continued, verse 34, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another. We might ask, how is this a new commandment? Leviticus 19 is known as the Holiness Code. Holy is a word that means separate or different. In that passage, God tells the people, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Words that we know better for the fact that Jesus quoted them as part of the greatest commandment, did he not? Nor would an ancient hearer of this passage require a Pharisee to ask a clarifying question like, who exactly is my neighbor? Later in the chapter, we read, you shall love the alien as yourself. A reminder that outsiders in our midst are part of our community. What makes this commandment new is that now these are no longer just words that come from above. They're words that are being lived before us. Jesus said, they're to love one another, how? As I have loved you. Washing the feet of his disciples was only a start. They were probably still reeling from that. But they were about to be confronted by the ultimate act of love. Folks, it's the simple plan. That's the secret we've stumbled on. That's the message that has been decoded and dropped into our lap. We are to love one another as Jesus loved us. That's how they will know that we belong to Jesus, if we have love one for another. Backbiting, bickering, hatred, that's not a part of Jesus' family. We can't have that in our lives. You know, I truly wish that this was more difficult. I wish it was harder, because then we would have an excuse. I wish that there were a number of steps that we'd have to go through, levels of secret knowledge we'd have to be initiated in, or training we'd have to endure under blessed masters. Not that Christian education is a bad idea, not that workshops don't benefit. But that continued and regular Bible study doesn't strengthen us, but this is simple. So simple. The world is in rebellion against the kingdom of God. That's reality. The rebels have an able general who has been able to redefine. Now think about it. Bad as good. Sin as attractive. Atrocity as pragmatic. Is this not true today? Indeed it is. Their leader has won so many victories. Our society has crumbled under the weight of personal desire. And in response, we've been overwhelmingly cautious. Are we ready to live this simple plan of practicing sacrificial love for each other and for the world? Are we? Are you? Are we going to just talk a good game? Be there on Sunday morning, but then the rest of the week's mine. During the days of the World Council of Churches, one of its delegates, M.R. Ziegler from Virginia, stood up and made a proposal. His proposal was that the Christians of the world resolve not to kill each other. Well, Ziegler was much beloved by the other delegates. He was admired for the many service programs that he had administered in post-war Europe. They had brought relief and healing to so many. And even though he was given a respectful hearing, there was not a second to his motion. Really? Now, this is not meant as a criticism of the World Council of Churches. It's the same everywhere. Just look around you. Look at the evening news. Christians are not willing to pledge that they will truly live the Sermon on the Mount, returning good for evil, going the second mile, pledging not to kill in the name of Christ. So there it is. The key to success has been thrust into our hands. Do we accept it? We found the key to love one another with a sacrificial love that will stop at absolutely nothing. Not at the washing of feet or other menial tasks. Not even at the cross itself. Wow. Let me ask you. Are you ready to love the enemy to death, even if it means your own? It did for Jesus. Are you willing to answer the oft-repeated question whose answer is just as often ignored? What would Jesus do? What did he do? Now, Pastor Ridley, come on. You've given us a history lesson, then you talk about loving one another. So what does that mean for us? I mean, give me something that I need to use this coming week. Well, I'm going to tell you, if I have to break it down for you, I'll do that. When Jesus washed the feet of his disciples, when he addressed them about loving one another, it was his disciples. It was that group closest to him. It was that group that had followed him. It was that group that was around the table with him. Those that he had taught for 3 years. His brothers, his brethren. Well, what does that mean for us today? Due to the growth of Christianity, it would be His church. It would be our church. It would be you. Because you are God's church. If we, His church, love one another with that same sacrificial love, what would we become? What would be the result? How will it affect those around us? Well, we would become examples of His kingdom on earth. But you can't be a part of that select group if you have resentment or hatred toward a brother or sister. It's impossible. We, His church, are God's beloved. We are today His disciples, just as those 11 were at the Last Supper. Do we love each other as much as those 11? I've said many times, before any church can see revival, there must be revival within first. That means you and me. That means a recommitment of our lives. A new determination to follow Him, to follow His example, to love one another, to love those around us, even the aliens. I'm calling for revival here. I'm calling for revival in this church. Folks, let's finish the job. Jim's going to come with a praise team. We're going to stand and sing one of our favorite hymns. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste of glory divine. Heir of salvation, purchase of God, born of His Spirit, lost in His love. Now, as we stand and sing, I hope some of you will realize, Pastor, I've not been that kind of example. I've not shown that kind of love. And if that's the case, you need to come this morning, you need to recommit your life. Because you're standing in the way of revival here. If you don't have a church home, I hope you'll consider First Baptist Church of East. We have the best fellowship. I've had so much love shown to me. It's just unbelievable. And I promise you, they'll do the same with you. This is a place that you need, but then we need you as well. So I hope you'll come. Make that commitment. Join with us as we seek revival here in our church. If you want to come and pray, the altar's here, it's open. You come. I'm going to be here to receive you. Pastor Joe is going to come and stand with me. If you've never accepted Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior of your life, let me tell you, you need to do that this morning. And if you'll come, I'll counsel with you. I'll pray with you. You come. Let's stand as we sing together. Pastor Joe, you come.